At 14:30 on January 8, 1945, Technical Sergeant Russell Dunham crouched in knee-deep snow at the base of Hill 616 near Kaisersberg, France, as German machine gun fire sliced through the winter sky above his pinned-down platoon. He was 24 years old, had survived 3 major campaigns, and had no intention of dying that day. The Germans had emplaced 3 MG-42 machine guns in timber-reinforced positions farther up the snow-blanketed slope. Each weapon could unleash 200 rounds per minute. Dunham's platoon from company. I had been pushing through the Alsace-Lorraine region when they stumbled into a deadly ambush. Machine gun tracers raked down from the heights. Artillery rounds burst behind them. The only way out was straight up a steep 40-degree incline into overlapping fields of fire. 11 men from 2nd Platoon had already been killed that week. The snow around their position was stained crimson. Every soldier in Company the Fines understood the grim odds. In the Vosges Mountains fighting, the 3rd Infantry Division had suffered higher daily losses than any other American division in Europe. The Germans controlled the high ground with perfect visibility, plenty of ammunition, and interlocking fire lanes. Dunham studied the hill. His platoon remained 35 yards behind him, flattened in the snow, unable to advance or withdraw. Staying put meant German artillery would zero in and wipe them out. Retreating meant exposure and slaughter. The machine guns had them trapped. The temperature hovered at 12 degrees. Snow lay 18 inches deep. Dunham wore standard olive-drab wool, making him a stark silhouette against the white backdrop. Any soldier who tried to move had been instantly spotted and driven back. The Germans dominated that hill. Dunham crawled back to the company area and located a white mattress cover. He ripped it open and draped it over his uniform like a cloak. Then he began loading up. He stuffed 12 30-round carbine magazines into every pocket and loop. He clipped a dozen Mark II fragmentation grenades to his belt. More grenades hung from his suspenders. He even wedged extras into the buttonholes of his field jacket. When he rose, he carried 72 pounds of ammo and explosives atop his M1 carbine. His platoon sergeant stared at him. Dunham offered no explanation. He simply began crawling uphill. The first 75 yards consumed 18 minutes. He advanced only when German fire shifted elsewhere. He flattened himself whenever the MG-42s swept back toward his path. The snow saturated his mattress cover. His hands grew numb. The rifle sling dug into his shoulder under the grenade weight. At 75 yards, he was 10 yards from the first machine gun emplacement. The timber bunker, log-reinforced, supported interlocking fire with the other 2 positions. 3 Germans crewed the gun, 1 feeding the belt, 1 firing, 1 scanning for targets. If you'd like to see how effectively that mattress cover camouflage worked, please smash that like button. It helps spread more forgotten tales like this. Subscribe if you aren't already. Now back to Dunham. Dunham surged to his feet and charged. The Germans detected the motion. The gunner swung the barrel toward him. At 6 yards, the MG-42 roared. Bullets ripped through his white robe. Then a rifle round struck across his back, gouging a 10-inch gash from left shoulder blade toward his spine. The impact spun him around and hurled him 15 yards downslope into the snow. He landed face down. Blood gushed from the wound, soaking the mattress cover and turning the white fabric vivid red against the snow. The pain was unbearable. He felt the gash tearing wider with each breath. For 5 seconds, he lay still. Then a German egg grenade landed 2 feet from his head. Dunham booted it away. It detonated 5 yards downslope, the blast concussion lifting him off the ground, and Russell Dunham rose again. He charged uphill firing. His M1 carbine still held 28 rounds. The gunner swung the MG-42 back, but Dunham was inside the weapon's minimum traverse limit. At 4 yards, he squeezed off a 3-round burst into the gunner's chest. The assistant gunner grabbed for his rifle. Dunham fired twice. Both dropped. The third crewman, the belt feeder, raised his hands and yelled in German. Dunham's carbine clicked empty. 30 rounds expended in 18 seconds. He slung the rifle, seized the German by the collar of his field grey coat, dragged him from the emplacement and shoved him downslope toward American lines. The prisoner half ran, half tumbled through the snow. Dunham's platoon would capture him for interrogation. Blood streamed down Dunham's back steadily now. The bullet had ripped muscle and tissue, but missed his spine by under 2 inches. Every motion widened the wound. The mattress cover was drenched red from shoulders to waist. Against the snow, he resembled a crimson banner. The second machine gun position lay 50 yards uphill and right. The crew had witnessed the first nest's destruction. They knew he was coming. They'd shifted their fire to cover the approach. Dunham spotted the timber logs and the dark barrel tracking across the slope. He slammed a fresh 30-round magazine into the carbine. 11 magazines remained, 10 grenades left. He advanced. The Germans opened up at 40 yards. Rounds whipped past his head and erupted snow plumes at his boots. Dunham dropped and crawled. The back pain was blinding. He paused every few yards to avoid passing out. He felt blood pooling inside his uniform. His hands trembled from blood loss and cold, but he pressed on. At 25 yards from the second emplacement, he rose to one knee and yanked 2 Mark II grenades from his belt. He pulled both pins, counted 2 seconds, and lofted them in a high arc. The Germans spotted them. One screamed. Both grenades exploded inside the position almost simultaneously. The blast hurled logs and gear outward. The machine gun fell silent. Dunham advanced, carbine ready. Smoke billowed from the ruined emplacement. Body parts littered the snow. The 3-man crew was obliterated. He didn't pause. He shifted to the supporting riflemen in foxholes around the position. 6 Germans scrambled out, fleeing. Dunham fired from 15 yards. He burned through another magazine, targeting every moving shape. He struck 3. The rest fled uphill, abandoning the fight. Dunham let them escape. One objective remained. The third machine gun sat 65 yards higher, the commanding position with the clearest view over the entire American advance. The crew had observed Dunham's assault for 12 minutes. They knew his location. They knew he was wounded. They knew his once white cover was blood-red and glaring, against the snow from 200 yards, and they had him targeted. Dunham glanced uphill. The MG-42 barrel pointed straight at him. Rifle grenades burst 10 yards away. Concussions flung him sideways. He dropped as machine gun bursts tore the air. He was exposed. No cover. The blood trail behind him marked his path like a highway. The Germans atop the hill wouldn't miss again. Dunham crawled. The third position was dug into timber 40 yards ahead, 30 feet higher. Reinforced. With sandbags, it dominated the southern approach. Every few seconds the MG-42 burst, walking rounds across the snow, hunting him. He moved in the pauses between bursts. 5 yards. Halt. Wait for the traverse. 3 more yards. The snow scorched his hands with cold. The back wound shifted from sharp agony to a grinding ache spreading through his torso. Blood loss tunneled his vision, but he retained 9 magazines and 8 grenades. At 40 yards, a rifle grenade exploded 6 yards left. Shrapnel and frozen earth sprayed his back. The impact felt like a horse kick. He couldn't tell if he'd been hit again. Pain blurred everything. He crawled onward. 30 yards, 25. Fire grew precise. The Germans saw him clearly now. The blood trail arrowed to him. 20 yards, 15. At 15 yards, Dunham halted, gathered his legs and timed it. The MG-42 fired 8 to 12 round bursts, then paused 2 to 3 seconds for re-aiming. He counted, burst, 1, 2, 3. He lunged upright and staggered forward. The Germans spotted him instantly. The gunner swung, but Dunham was moving, yanking grenades. 2 Mark IIs in hand, pins out. At 10 yards, he hurled both. One struck sandbags and rolled in. The second flew through the firing slit. Dunham dove flat. Both detonated. The explosion was devastating. Sandbags disintegrated. Timbers shattered. The barrel twisted off its mount. Dunham rose. Smoke poured from the wreckage. He advanced, carbine up, scanning. All 3 crewmen lay dead. One twitched toward a rifle. Dunham fired once. The movement ceased. Then boots crunched snow behind him. Dunham whirled. A German rifleman emerged from a nearby foxhole, 20 feet away. The enemy raised his carabiner 98 and fired point blank. The bullet missed Dunham's head by 3 inches. Dunham returned fire. First round struck the throat, second center mass. The German collapsed backward. Dunham stood atop the hill, breathing raggedly. His carbine empty. Again. He'd fired 175 rounds, thrown 11 grenades, 3 machine gun positions destroyed, 9 Germans killed, 7 wounded, 2 captured. His platoon was unpinned. Below, Company Y advanced up the slope. His brother Ralph moved with 2nd Squad. The Germans withdrew to higher ridges. The attack succeeded. Hill 616 would fall to Americans by dusk. Dunham gazed at his uniform. The mattress cover was solid red, blood-soaked from neck to knees. The wound tore open with each breath. Pain overwhelmed thought. His hands shook from shock and loss, but he'd succeeded. 120 soldiers from Company I had been trapped in that valley. Without his action, artillery would have annihilated them within the hour. Now they advanced. Now they fought. Now they lived. Dunham sat in the snow, awaiting medics. He refused to believe he'd die. Not today. Medics reached him 8 minutes later. They cut away the blood-drenched cover, opened his jacket. The bullet had carved a 10-inch long, 2-inch deep gash across his back, exposing muscle and bone. They dusted sulfur powder, applied compression bandages, injected morphine, and tagged him for evacuation. Dunham refused to leave. He walked down slope with Company Wine, clutching his empty carbine. By 18 hours at the battalion aid station, blood loss felled him at the entrance. The surgeon examined him and ordered immediate rear evacuation for surgery. The wound required debridement, stitches, and at least 2 weeks' rest. Dunham spent 4 days at the division clearing station. Surgeons cleaned it and closed with 43 stitches. They warned the bullet had missed his spinal cord by less than 2 inches. A slight angle change would have paralyzed him below the waist. A deeper gash would have severed it entirely. But the wound stayed clean. No major nerves damaged. No infection. He'd recover. On January 13th, 5 days post-assault, Dunham left the station for a rest area 20 miles rearward. The 3rd Infantry Division had fought non-stop since southern France in August 1944, through Vosges, Strasbourg, now Operation Nordwind, Germany's final western offensive. Casualties devastated them. December alone claimed 863 killed, 3,200 wounded. Rifle companies ran at 60% strength. Replacements lagged. Men returned before full healing due to shortages. Dunham's wound still oozed through bandages. Stitches tugged constantly. Doctors prescribed 3 more weeks' rest. But on January 18th, 10 days after Hill 616, he reported to Company 1's command post for duty. Stitches remained, but 2nd Platoon had only 18 men. They needed every rifle. The commander reviewed his file, eyed Dunham, and reassigned him to squad. No debate. They advanced north to Holzwehr, a village 15 miles from the German border. Intelligence noted heavy German armor, 19th Army panzer units launching spoiling attacks to stall the American. Push toward the Rhine. Company, I would defend the town's southern edge. Dunham rejoined his platoon January 20th. Brother Ralph remained in 2nd Squad, still wielding the same bar from North Africa. They didn't discuss Hill 616. No words needed. The company knew. General Patch visited January 16th, met Dunham, shook his hand, and stated his actions saved 120 men from artillery slaughter. But that was Hill 616. This was Holtzwihr. New battle, new risks. The 3rd Division was exhausted, undermanned, confronting armor with scant anti-tank assets. Every line was fragile, one breach from collapse. On January 22nd morning, 2nd Platoon would face encirclement by German tanks with no escape. At 06 Makokan on January 27, 1945, German tanks emerged on 3 sides of Company 1's position in Holtzwihr. Dunham counted 7 Panthers and 3 Tiger Is, rolling through morning fog, engines rumbling like thunder over frozen fields. The 3rd Division lacked armor support here. No tank destroyers, no proximate artillery. 2nd Platoon had 2 bazooka teams and 14 rockets total. The assault came from 19th Army Armored Reserves held back during Nordwind, now unleashed to sever the American salient toward the Rhine. Panthers advanced staggered from the west across open farmland. Tigers approached south, 88mm guns traversing for targets. Company W's farm building cluster offered no defense, no cover, no concealment, no means to halt 70-ton tanks with 8-inch frontal armor. Bazooka teams fired at max range. 2 struck. Both ricocheted off Panther glacis without effect. Germans didn't slow. At 0630, the company commander ordered surrender. White flags rose from 3 buildings. German tanks halted. Infantry advanced for prisoners. 147 men from Company Y emerged, hands raised. Germans disarmed, searched, and columned them for rear POW camps. Dunham refused surrender. He slipped out the farmhouse rear while Germans processed captives and fled west through bare trees toward outbuildings 200 yards distant. His back wound had reopened overnight. Blood seeped through bandages, but he wouldn't rot in a camp. He reached the structures unseen. A small barn, tool shed, stone storage building with a sagging wooden door. Barn empty save rotting hay. Shed held broken tools. Storage building contained barrels, 6 wooden ones, 4 feet tall, 3 feet wide. Dunham lifted the first lid. Frozen potatoes. 2nd, empty. 3rd, sauerkraut. Fermented cabbage filled it nearly to the top. The pungent, acidic odor struck like a blow, watering his eyes. He glanced back. German soldiers patrolled, checking structures, hunting stragglers. Voices echoed, boots crunched frozen ground. Minutes away. He climbed into the sauerkraut barrel. Cabbage was icy, slimy, densely packed. He forced himself down to chest, then neck, then drew the lid over. The stench suffocated. Brine soaked his uniform and raw wound. The burn was torture, like acid in open flesh. He bit his tongue to stifle screams. Germans entered the building, boots on stone, voices in rapid German, barrels kicked, lids lifted. They inspected every one. Dunham held breath, pressed deeper. The lid stayed shut. Germans finished, departed. Dunham remained motionless, barely breathing. Temperature plunged. Night fell. He didn't know if they'd return. Dunham endured 13 hours in the barrel. Post-sunset, temperature hit 8 degrees. Brine froze slush around him. He lost sensation in hands and feet. The wound numbed from cold and acid burn. Hourly, he shifted slightly for circulation. Each motion drove fresh brine into the gash.